Now, when we're banging about what we want to do on the show today, our producer Jeff has turned up with this guy, Harold Hillman. Now, Harold, how would I describe your profession or what you do for a living? Would you say motivator? Would you say coach? Would you say all-round good guy? What would you say?
Good morning, Mark. It's a pleasure to join you. I guess I would probably describe myself as a leadership coach. I have worked in that realm for the past 30 years or so, and in the traditional realm of HR in the corporate space or in an organization where you're helping to build people's capability, helping to build their confidence, helping to identify successors in an organization. And these are people who you want to hold on to, develop, and hopefully they end up running the organization someday.
Because I guess so often people end up in leadership positions just because they've been the best person at the job, but leadership in itself is a skill in itself, yeah?
It really is. We've certainly learned over the last 30 years with a lot of empirical data now that supports the development of leaders. There was a common belief, let's say, if you date yourself back to last century, that some people are born with it and some aren't. But what we really know is that leadership there are a number of inherent skills associated with being an effective leader. And a big part of it is enabling people to go deeper, doing a little bit of reflection in terms of the impact they want to have, the influence they'd like to have, and then helping them land on it in a way that's authentic, genuine, where they project a certain confidence. There are certainly things that you can do to enhance the impact of your influence, no matter what your role is, no matter what rank you are in the organization. You could be 19 and still have influence, as opposed to just, someone with high rank.
It is 9:08. This is Harold Hillman on Magic Talk, who's a leadership coach. You mentioned that word in there, and it did ring a bell to me, authentic. Now, this seems to be a very, very trendy word at the moment. Be authentic, authenticity, etc. What exactly does that mean in a leadership context?
I wrote a book in 2013 called The Imposter Syndrome, Mark, and it was based partly on my own experience in growing up in the corporate world and putting a lot of pressure on myself to be this perfect person. I also grew up as a closeted gay kid who then entered the world of work, even served in the U.S. military at a time when it was illegal to be gay. So I've actually been a real imposter in that whole notion that I was afraid to have people see me as being wonderfully imperfect as opposed to this perfect being. And so a big part of leadership effectiveness is just being genuine, giving people a consistent experience, and being confident about who you are and what you bring to the table.
Yeah, but Harold, if people are too genuine right at the very beginning, there are some tough crowds out there. I mean, they could get picked a bit straight away, and they could be on the back foot.
Absolutely. And that means, certainly taking things in context. And so if you're working in an environment where being too transparent is something that will work against you, you have to sort of make a decision. You're not going to do anything foolish that renders you vulnerable to the point where you can no longer have impact. But you've got to make a call at some point on whether or not working in an environment that runs counter to your values or who you are, if staying there too long is the best thing for you. In other words, give it a go in terms of whether or not you're able to change it. But at some point, you've got to allow yourself to be you. You've got to allow yourself to be genuine in terms of who you are and what you believe.
Harold, what's in your mind the difference between a leader and a manager?
A leader is anyone certainly who leads a team will find themselves toggling, Mark, between a few hats. One of those hats is that of a manager. And a manager, and when you're wearing your manager hat, You are focused on some specific deliverables. These are the things that's in the person's job description that they have to deliver, and you usually, as a manager, are helping them put a plan around how to get that from point A to point C and the steps along the way. So the manager hat is more around the minutia of making things happen. The leadership hat is different, Mark. It's a bigger hat. And when we talk about leadership, we're talking about inspiration. We're talking about helping people feel like coming to work is bigger than a paycheck, that they are really about something important. There's an emotive component to leadership where, particularly when people are pushing through adversity, there's the idea that inspiring people to really take it to the next level very often can be the best thing that you can do to help this person grow in both their confidence and their capability.
Harold, I do in my other life, I do a lot of work in a similar field to yours. Mine's in leadership communication, and I've discovered that there are. You don't have. There's no stereotypical leader. I mean, the kind of leader that we thought of was kind of a war general that was like, "Follow me, lads. We're going that way." But you can quite successfully lead from behind, can't you?
You most certainly can. We talk about that leading from the front, which is more of that directive, autocratic leadership. And you picture George Washington on a horse, or to your point, in a military context, let's go. There is also this construct, Mark, called servant leadership, which I was introduced to in the military. And that is that you can lead from behind, and that is that sometimes if you really want to stretch a person and you really want to build their confidence, you push them out there a bit more. You support them from the back. You help move obstacles out of their way, but you give them the sense that they really are driving this, because it's important sometimes, particularly when a person has lost confidence. And you are their leader, you're their team leader, and you're really trying to get them back into an optimal zone. Sometimes you can do that better by supporting them from the back, words of encouragement, give them a presentation to make, ensure that they go in there with the support that they need, and it can just bolster a person where you don't necessarily have to be the one out in front, but you can certainly pat yourself on the back for helping another person be successful.
It's interesting. I've been listening to the Steve Hansen book lately, and he talks about leadership. I mean, he was a very, very successful All Black coach. He talks about the transition of leadership with this day and age, and he says that the new players these days, now they come in with a lot more assumptions and higher expectations of a coach, of a leader, and they want to be included a lot more. They don't respond so much to the inspirational rah-rah, follow me directive leadership anymore. They demand a whole different sort of leadership.
You are right, Mark. We refer to these as the sort of the generational differences. And when we talk about the current generation of young people, certainly between the ages of 21 and 35, what we call Gen Z, Generation Z. And these are young folks who come into the organization now with the expectation that you are hiring them not only for what they can do, but also for how they can think and how they can help you think. And there is the old adage back when, I'm in my 60s now, so the old adage when I was coming up the ranks in my 20s and 30s, the value proposition between the company and the employee was, from the company stance, aren't you lucky to work here? And then fast forward to 2022, Mark, and with the younger people coming into the organization now, the adage has changed significantly, and that is, aren't you lucky to have me?
To have me.
There is no more going into an organization and staying there for 30 years and getting the gold watch and those types of things. Young people are far less likely to stay with an organization if they don't feel that they're being stretched and that they're growing going. And so organizations have to work harder. It's called engagement. So every moderate to large size business or organization out there measures what we call staff or employee engagement. And that is, if you're not engaged, and that is that real sense that you're contributing to something important, we're going to lose you ultimately. And so that's the big difference to the point you were making earlier, Mark. We are in a different era.
We're in a different era. We're in a different economy as well, where it's very hard to get labour, etc. But still, when it comes down to it, surely a leader, the art of leadership is identifying what each and every person responds to. So, for example, I like to feel like I love praise. I love being applauded. I love being held up in front, and that's just my personality. But other people just want to do the job and go home. They just want to be happy.
Right.
That's the art of it, isn't it?
It really is, and I like your use of that word. The art is often referred to the art and the skill of leadership because there's an intuitive component there. And what you're reinforcing is that a good leader does not view his or her team as in a cookie cutter approach, and that is one size fits all. You actually take the opportunity to get to know everyone reasonably well in terms of, why are they in the role? What would they like to achieve? How do they want to grow? Where do they see themselves in 5 years? Across a given year, what would they look at as accomplishments or achievements en route to being able to do something else at some point? And so a good leader really does sit down with each person fully present and having that person really believe that one of your primary goals is to help them succeed.
Yeah, and their definition of success, like my definition and KM on the other side of the desk here, her definition of success might be quite different. How do you, so because to me, if I get into a team, I think everybody's got to be in that team. It's 24/7, it's all go, it's passion, rah, 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 rah. Now, someone on the other side of the desk might think, well, you don't pay me for that. And I, as a manager or a leader, have to treat you differently to get the best out of you. How do you reconcile that with each of your workers? That one person seems to be getting...
It'll be interesting on the other side of the COVID scenario here. With respect to how we do work. Because, again, 20 years ago or so, we did come into the office. And, we had to all be physically present to sort of signify that we were a team and getting things done. And the world of work will be different on the other side of this, and we've got to flex a little bit more. This is when I refer to workplace flexibility, I often liken it to the genie in the bottle. And the genie is out of the bottle now, and it's not going to go back in. And the reality is that we've demonstrated through the pandemic that people can work flexibly and still deliver, and that's a big part. That's going to be a big part now around attracting and retaining talent in organizations. This 9 to 5 in the office, everybody sitting together in the same room. All of that's shifting dramatically even now.
Harold, the whole team thing might be a thing of the past. It might be bigger than we think because at the moment my team is my family. And I work as a city councillor, a communications coach, I'm a podcaster, I do all these sort of things, but my team is my family now. Whereas when I was in radio, for example, my team was my show, it was my station, and everything came around. And just simply because of the tyranny of geography, people's teams are going to become more isolated. Maybe we do need to really, really think hard about that whole team thing.
Look, that is a mental model that's being tested even as we work our way through this current scenario. And I've been reading some really intriguing articles about what teams might look like over the next decade, including the fact that because many businesses globally and locally have been working virtually, it then counters this idea that you have to live in the same city or even in the same country to be on this team. that you can actually hire someone who lives in France or someone who lives in Poland who may come visit the organization's home base a few times a year. But now we can sort of think about our teams being, let's get the best people to be on the team, even if they live in another continent. That's completely different, Mark, than certainly the way we used to think about that construct. Let's say 30 years ago, where in some cases, if it were a bank or an insurance company or an organization that had offices across the country there, if home base was Auckland or Wellington, very often you were required to move to Auckland or Wellington, even if your home was in New Plymouth or Dunedin. Now we have put an end to that idea that you literally have to be there to be effective, and I think that's going to continue to morph.
Yeah, well, you look, even this company that I left this company 5 years ago, and I've come back in to fill in a little bit. It's really changed. They've got a massive hub in Auckland, which is absolutely fantastic. But they've got contributing shows we're from Hamilton. Richard does his from Christchurch. Some do it from Wellington. It's all over the place, isn't it? So things are definitely changing.
They really are, and I think for the better. This is just going to open up the job market a bit more, and it's going to then, for organizations hiring people into roles, it's really going to require you to get under some assumptions about what it is that people really want and need. We are definitely over the next few years or so, how we work together, how we team together there are going to be some significant differences there.
There sure are. Harold, you can probably gather that you and I could probably talk for about 4.5 hours on this, and I would very much enjoy the opportunity to do so one time. But at the moment, we are now 7 minutes late to play a commercial break, and you know what happens in commercial radio if you don't play commercials? Yeah, we don't come back next time. If people want to find you, Harold, how can they do so?
At www.sigmoidcurve.com.
How do you spell that?
Sigmoid and curve, Sigmoid curve, like the S curve.
Now that in itself deserves an explanation, which you'll probably find on the website, sigmoidcurve.com. Harold, thank you so much for your time on Magic Talk. We'd love to talk to you again sometime.
Thank you, Mark. Take care.